Hello, I'm Matt Ford and welcome to episode 5 of Reservoir Red Dogs, the Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Matt Ford and there's still part of me which hopes that one day I'll play for Forest.
Okay. Sorry, I do apologise. I'm Paul McGregor and every part of me knows... What? You never will. Oh, okay, I see what you've done there. I like that. Do you want me to do it again? I'm Paul McGregor, and every part of me knows you never will. Coming up on this show, we'll be playing another round of Trick or Treat, and we'll be announcing the winner of the half-season ticket competition. They're boring, Matt, this week.
Well, it's admin, isn't it? It's got to be straightforward.
You've got to think about this job more than admin. It's entertainment, Matthew. Come on.
You're free to write one if you want, mate.
Anytime you want.
Next time.
Okay.
For the Boxing Day one.
Yeah.
We'll also find out if anyone started a Paul McGregor chant in the last 2 weeks. We should just say as well, Paul, you're not going through any sort of great trauma, but you are quite ill, hence your voice.
Pretty poorly, yeah. But, as anyone who's ever seen me play will know I'm a warrior. Well,
you look like one as well. You look like a sort of...
Sorry, am I boring you? Are you flicking through your phone?
No, I'm going to take a photo of you.
Okay.
Just, we'll tweet this out when the podcast goes out, but Paul's gone to extraordinary lengths to try and keep... the
Everybody
rest of us healthy, yeah.
Yeah, we've got an athlete with us today as well, so,
Where?
Well, that is the voice. We should give him a proper introduction. We're joined by one of the best footballers I've ever seen play for Forest, who twice featured in the PFA Team of the Year. One of the most exciting players ever to grace the City Ground pitch. He is Andy Reid.
Forest looking for an equaliser. 2-1 down. Federico Macheda with both goals. Here's Reid, 25 yards out. Andy Reid has done it again. Forest get an equaliser. It's top corner, it's top quality.
Andy, welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
We are very good.
Thanks,
It is an honour to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. A real pleasure to be here with the writer and the sick man over there.
Yeah, sick man, sick boy.
As always, we are guided by the man that the Welsh call Johnny Owen. It's Johnny Owen.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you all doing? You all right?
Very good, thanks. How are you? You did confide in me earlier, and I thought maybe the lads could help, that you've been having some quite severe nightmares recently.
Yeah, I watched Rambo yesterday. I don't know why. I ended up having a bit of a nightmare last night.
Do not mix Rambo with cheese.
I know. I thought I was in Nam. I don't know what happened there.
Wow.
Yeah, woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning. Managed to get back to sleep about 6 o'clock this morning, but I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm a trooper. I'm a warrior, like Maka.
Exactly.
Was it Rambo 1 or Rambo 2? Because Rambo 2 is my personal favourite.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Rambo 2. It was called, was it?
First Blood.
First Blood, Part 2.
Part 2, yeah, that's definitely the best one.
So what happens in the second one?
It's the one where he goes over to Vietnam, isn't it? To save the girl.
The first one is a
Cambodia.
vagrant, isn't it?
Cambodia.
He finds the American prisoners of war that didn't exist.
That's the
and
one.
managed to rescue them and take them home.
So good.
Well, do enjoy Rambo over the festive period, but don't mix it with cheese or strong curry, because you'll end up like Johnny Owen having fever dreams at 4 o'clock in the morning. Andy, as we said, it's a pleasure to have you here. One of the best players I've ever seen play football, arguably the best player in Forest history.
Oh, God, that's very, very, very far from true, but thank you very much.
Honestly, the most exciting player I've ever seen play Forest.
Wow. How long have you been watching Forest?
Since I was born in 1982, so we must be
year
a
as
similar
me.
age.
Okay. Yeah, I was 82 as well.
Just astonishing. What is remarkable is, obviously born just outside Dublin or the outskirts of Dublin, you come to England, you turn down Arsenal and Manchester United to come to Forest.
To be honest with you, it wasn't really a difficult choice. I went on trial to Arsenal and to Man United, and they both wanted to sign me. But I just felt at them clubs that it was just, when I went there was probably 30 or 40 lads that get off a coach, and you just felt like you were another number. You just felt like they were just ticking it off. Right, there's another player. There's another player. There's another player, and there was nothing. You never really felt the personal touch of them clubs, and I came to Forest, and I really felt that at Forest. I remember on my second trial, I've come down to the training ground, and I'm training with the reserves. Maka probably would have been training there at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, this, I've got a chance here.
Yeah.
I've got a chance of getting in the Forest team here." Whereas you go to Man United, and you weren't at the same training ground. You were probably somewhere outside Manchester. We probably weren't even in Manchester. That's how far away we were from. So I just felt there was much more of an opportunity for me getting in the Forest team. So it wasn't. People would say, "Oh, you turned down Man United, you turned down Arsenal," but it wasn't really ever an option for me. Forest was the place that I wanted to go when I was younger.
That's music to the ears.
No, but I'm not just saying that just because of the club. Because to be honest with you, at the time I didn't know about the club. I didn't really know too much about the club. It was based purely on how I was treated when I turned up at the club. It was nothing to do with the history of the club, or it was nothing to do with that. It was to do purely with how I was treated, and my family felt comfortable with me moving away at 15 years of age to come over. They felt I was going to be treated the right way at the club, because it was a great youth setup at the time, and it was actually just before Paul Hart came in, and things got better when Paul Hart came in. There's no doubt about that. But when I signed for the club, Mick Rayner was youth development officer, and John Perkins was youth team manager, and it was a fantastic setup then as well. And Paul came in and improved it and made it a lot more professional. But still, it was a great setup at the time. So I was very, very lucky to come into such a good environment to learn how to play football and to learn how to become a better person as well.
It's so good to know that kids are properly looked after. Do you remember seeing Reidy as a youth, Paul?
I do, yeah, and Dawson, all that lot. I'm not sure, you'd probably been boot boys to our lot, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember who was one. I remember I did Woney's boots. Oh my God! Wow.
How many times do they get chucked at you?
I tell you, you know what? I went in one day and I thought to myself, you know what? I've proper done these here. Sparkling. So went in, put them down. And kind of nodded, because you're a little bit, you're a little bit in awe of the first team. Well, and rightly so as well. You're a little bit in awe. And I've turned around and I'm walking out the door. Next of all, I feel a boot hit me in the back, and I turn around. And he's like, "You've missed a spot." And instead of kind of, you can't turn around and say, "Right," so you turn around and you go, "Sorry, I'll go and fix it."
Had you missed a spot?
No, I hadn't. No, I think he was just making a point, But I learned from him, because I done that to my boot boy a few years later. I thought it's all part of the cycle. I'll get his back.
Circle life.
Yeah. But it was all right, because I got Woney back, because we played against Burnley in the Championship there a few years ago, and I set up 2 goals and we beat them 2-0 at the City Ground. So as I was walking,
You're telling me you missed a spot?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, didn't miss a spot on my boots, did I, mate?
Did you say anything to him at that game? Did you?
No. I've seen Woney loads of times since. I love Woney. He's a great guy. But he was one of them. He was a great person to learn from, actually. And because he could be really, really harsh on you. He could be, especially if you're playing, if you're playing a reserve game or something like that, he could be really harsh. But he was always okay with me generally when I played with him, because I think maybe it was the left footer thing. But I remember we played a reserve game one time, and we beat Spurs 3-0. And Dave Freeman, do you remember Dave Freeman? Dave Freeman scored a hat trick, and Sol Campbell was just coming back from injury for Tottenham, and he played in the reserve game. Dave Freeman was brilliant, scored a hat trick. He was excellent, and Woney's wrapped the ball into him. About 5 minutes left in the game. We're 3-0 up, comfortable, and it's bounced off his foot, and he's absolutely hammered Freer, like proper hammered Freer. And the ball's come back, and Freer's looked at me, and he's gone, "I've just scored a hat trick, Reid." He says, "What's he hammering me for?" Yeah, but he'd keep you on your toes. Woney was good like
He
that.
used to make me giggle every day coming in from training, because invariably, if we've spoken about it before, we'd only do 5-a-side for 20 minutes normally. So it changed a bit, obviously, as the Frank Clough came in. But he'd always wander in the dressing room and just be like, "Oh, well, another day, another grand." Every single day used to make me giggle.
What was he? Was he just being funny, or was he quite a cocky bloke?
No, he wasn't. It's just, he's got funny bones, won't he? He was brilliant. But I agree with Reid. He could be so cutting.
It must be quite hard when especially when you're not a boot boy, because you're like, it's not like being a ball boy or a mascot. You're talented yourselves. You're future footballers, and yet you're sort of being treated like,
No, but you got to learn
waiters.
your trade. As I started to get older, that started to go out of it. When I started to get to 26, 27, I remember a time when the youth team didn't even clean the boots, and I hated that. And not because I wasn't bothered about somebody cleaning my boots. I clean my own boots. I'm not bothered about that. But I always felt that, the youth team, they need to learn the craft, they need to learn what it takes, learn that little bit of humility, and kind of earn your way into the first team.
Yes.
And I felt that kind of started to drift out of it with the whole academy process kind of coming in, the category academies and all that. And I think it's.
I think the game's poorer for it, Reedy.
Oh well, I think the characters in the game are less for it. There's a lot of the characters in the game. That have came up through these systems beforehand, where they had to be strong. You had to be mentally strong. So that means when you get into the force team, when things don't go too right for you, you're mentally strong and you're able to deal with it.
Yeah.
And these academies, the way they're being run now, the characters aren't coming through. They're producing talented footballers who, they can control the ball properly and
strong,
they can
fast.
pass it with the inside of the foot. Yeah. Strong, fast, all them things. But when the chips are down, have they got that mental strength? Have they got that, that little bit of bite? When you go a goal down at home, when the crowd are starting to get on your back, I'll have the ball. Give me the ball.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel that whole side of it is starting to go out, and you're starting to see less and less characters in the game. And I put it down to managers in a lot of ways as well, because I think managers are afraid of these strong characters. The good strong managers would welcome them strong characters into the team because they didn't have to manage them.
There's nothing more character building than playing Murder in the Dark at the end of the year in the boot room, is
Oh,
there?
that was
What?
Mate.
Tell me
What's
about
this?
Murder in the Dark.
Oh.
In
Is
that
this just a
white
forest thing?
YTS room down the bottom left-hand side.
What?
So you go and get all the boots out the boot room.
And this is just a forest thing. This isn't a thing that happens.
I
Well,
don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
It was fairly damaging. So we in the YTS room down the bottom, opposite the reserve team room, someone would just give it Murder in the Dark, and everyone would look and go, "Oh, come on!" And it was like, "Okay, come on, let's do it." So we get all the boots in. Boots would come off your feet, and the lights would go out, and it was an absolute free for all. So you're scrambling around trying to find boots and just launch them as hard as you can anywhere.
Oh my! You could have killed
Yeah,
someone.
there was regularly
easily.
cut heads
Yeah.
and cut eyes. And
Yeah,
all
but
that.
the funny thing was, when somebody would turn the lights back on, you would find people curled up in little balls under seats and
Behind
stuff
about
like
7
that.
coats.
Yeah. Trying to hide, yeah. And then everybody going around looking for the boots then to go out training.
I reckon all officers should do that in Nottingham today.
Just as a sort of team building exercise.
Just team building, yeah. Get your shoes off, turn the lights off, and get them launched.
You talk about characters and the development of characters in football. It's a lot of things that fans talk about regularly. Who are the biggest characters in the Forest sides that you played in? For better or for worse, maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's definitely some yeah. Well, you know what? At different stages, at different stages there was different lads. We had a group of young lads that came through on the Paul Hart, and we get in. So most of our characters were kind of all roughly around the same age. It was myself and John Thompson, and Doss came in then a little bit later. But to add that in, then we had Des Walker just come
Yes,
back out
that's right.
retirement, and he gave and Des was brilliant for all of us.
Great on a park, and he does.
But he was great off
Yeah.
it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Des was brilliant. When Des came back at Forest, we were all a little bit like, we were thinking, has Paul kind of planted him in here, like, what I mean? Because Des came back and he'd retired for a year and he was 38, and we're thinking like Paul Hart's like kind of planted him in the changing room to see what we're doing, because we had a group of lads that were, we'd go out and have a few drinks and that, so we were, but we soon got to realise that Des was out with us all the time when he came out, and Des was one of the lads,
Yeah.
But he was brilliant for us, and you could go and speak to him, and I'll be still quite close with Des now today, and you'd go and speak to him, and you'd ask him for his advice, and he'd always give you the honest, straight advice. The only problem with that was sometimes it was the advice that would be good for what he would have done. So he'd give you the advice, so you go and see him, right, and you'd ask him something, and he'd say, just go and see him. Just go and see him and ask him. Like, so, you'd be on about going to see Paul Hart, So I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go and see him. I'm going to go and see him and ask him. So you go in and see Paul Hart. I'd be like, listen, Paul, I think I deserve a new contract, right? And Paul would tear a strip off me. And I'd go out, right, with my head, my tail between my legs, I'd walk out and be like, Des, you told me to go in and see him. And he went, Reidy, that's what I said I'd do. I never said it was what you should do.
He's a legend, Des Walker. I used to see, you see Forest players out in the town, and he was always sort of seemed to be leading the charge from a distance. He was the sort of father figure of the group. He was well in there. One of the players that you played alongside, Andy, and I wonder perhaps if he was someone you were thinking of and didn't want to mention, but as a fan, it was fascinating to watch. You both played together, was Marlon Harewood, who I've never seen players sort of argue with each other on a pitch before like you two did. And I have to say, with the greatest respect to Marlon, He was offside more than any other Forest player I can ever remember. As a fan, I always felt like, what is he playing at? Maybe I was wrong about him, but you seem to get frustrated with him at times.
Yeah, I did get frustrated with him, and he probably used to get frustrated with me. The reason I used to get so frustrated with Marlon is because I realised how good Marlon could be. I mean, I've seen Marlon play games where if the England manager had been there watching the game, the England manager would have picked him in his England squad, and that's no exaggeration. That's how good he was. You could have put him up against anybody in the world, and he was that strong. He was that quick. He could finish. He could, he was.
He was in the first team squad when I was there.
When
he was the same. You were thinking, who is this kid? There were times where he couldn't trap a ball and it was bouncing off him, and then he'd just go around 3 people and hit it, and you go, whoa, what was that?
And that was the frustrating thing, is that you knew how good he could be. You knew that he could win you a game on his own and he kind of at times he just had that thing where it just didn't quite click for him at times, and that was when I used to kind of get frustrated with him. But I like Marlon. He's a great lad. He is a great lad, and I still see him around. And they were really good times, them youth team kind of stroke reserve team days. There was a great bunch of lads down there. I remember people, kind of who were a little bit older than me, kind of maybe a little bit younger than you. People like Richard Cooper and Barry Turner, and people like that, and Dave Freeman, John Burns, who we still see around. Burns is probably your age,
Burns is a year younger than me.
Yeah, and there were great times to be around the club. There was a lovely feeling around the club, and again, it's part of the reason why I wanted to come and play for Forest, because it was a lovely feeling. You'd walk in there and you'd feel part of it. You'd feel like you were part of a football club. You wouldn't feel like you were in the youth team and then the first team were a completely separate entity. You'd all, and that maybe that was partly because we used to get changed at the stadium, and the first team would be in the first team changing room, and the reserve teams, and the youth team would be in the YTS room. But we were all in the same building, kind of getting changed.
And the walk down were all together as well.
Walk down all together, yeah. So that all kind of helped. Now, some people look on that in a different way. I remember Billy Davis, for example. He didn't like the fact that we used to get changed at the stadium, because he liked to turn up on a match day and it be special feel and special preparation before you go out on the pitch. And you can understand that side of it as well. But for me, because I seen the whole early stages of it, the first team reserves and the youth team all being in the same building, getting changed at the stadium, there just seemed a sense of togetherness and a sense of fun, and there was just little things that I remember, like you'd walk into the physio room and John Hasseltine would be there, John Hasseltine, and he'd turn around, get in this physio room, what are you doing here? And he'd be like, I only wanted a bit of tape, John. Like, just standing there, like, and I think he used the nickname of Mad Dog, was it? Mad Dog,
Yeah.
And these are all characters,
Oh, he was great.
but they're all characters that are kind of embedded in your memory, and as I said earlier, they were part of your football upbringing, but also part of your personal. Kind of building your identity, building your personality, And
there is a lovely romance about the club, isn't there? It's one of those clubs with a real great sense of romance, and to have been lucky enough to have been around a club that around those sorts of times was incredible, isn't it? It's something you don't really appreciate at the time, even though you say you were quite aware of the feeling within the club. But as I've got older, it's something I've looked back at and gone, wow, that they really were just incredible times.
Totally, and it kind of brings it brings a little warm feeling to you when when you bump into somebody.
That might be Christmas.
No, but it could be the Christmas, but don't mention that, comes later. No, but what it could be, when you sit and you talk to somebody who, like if I talk to John Burns, or I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you about it. It brings back that feeling. It brings back the. I think of them times. It was fun. And the things that I still relate to now. The as I said, the personality building and the person that you grow up to become. Part of it is shaped from them times. There's no doubt about it.
I did a piece in Bandy and Shinty in the first one that talked about kind of the moral structure that you felt coming into a club like Nottingham Forest. The club was run on a particular way of behaviour. You don't argue with the refs. You don't. You behave a certain way. Yeah, you go out and there's a group of you having a drink and all that, but you drink your halves, and there was just this little moral code. And I think that, it came from Clough and the way he went about his business and sort of rattled through the club. And I think we had that more than any other club.
Yeah, I think so very much, and I still speak about it when I talk. I feel that I've been very, very lucky to have the football upbringing that I had. Initially with John Perkins, and then afterwards with Paul Hart, and particularly with Paul Hart. Paul was fantastic. He was great. And Paul, there's still things to the day I retired that I was doing on the training pitch and on the football pitch there. My body shape, if I was facing somebody up or anything like that. There was little things that I remember, like Paul Hart teaching me when I was in the youth team. He shaped me, helped shape me as a footballer. So that, but also more than that, helped shape me as the type of person that I am.
Wow.
Because I came to the club when I was 15. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know. I was a 15-year-old lad. I've just come over from Ireland. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know what type of person I was, what type of person I wanted to be. I knew that my parents had given me manners. Yes. I knew how to say please and I knew how to say thank you. And if I didn't say please or thank you, I could get a clip behind the ear. So I had them, but I didn't know about how am I going to treat this person? How am I going to treat that person? You don't walk past somebody in the corridor and you see somebody at the club, like people like Jane who's serving you the dinner. Make sure you say please and thank you.
Yeah.
Make sure you acknowledge.
Jane's still there, by the way.
I've seen her not too long ago. Yeah. But make sure you acknowledge that these people are part of the football club as well. It's not just
Jean
about
in the washroom.
Everybody
was in there. Everyone was. Piercy was lovely with Jean. He was great with her. That's what it was about.
It was very, very important, and not to underplay. I remember when Paul Hart got the first team job, he got everybody in the whole club into the trophy room. The trophy room was packed, so the people from the offices, all the players, the catering staff, everybody into and he said, if we're going to achieve something at this football club, it's not going to be that first team, it's not going to be that reserve team, it's not going to be that youth team, it's going to be everybody here. It's going to be using the corporate side, it's going to be the hospitality in the offices, all the footballers, everybody together. And he says, if I ever catch any of the footballers being rude to anybody that works here in any way whatsoever, they will feel my wrath. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And
but it's not empty,
moral.
Is it?
No,
that's not empty, because if the commercial team are doing their job and bringing business in, then there's more money for better players on the park. It all translates. It all helps. And if you have to have someone sit down and say that to you, it's that's real.
Of course, there's a reason. There's a reason why you're doing it. You're not, like you say, not just doing it just for the sake of it. And that is all part of the values of the club.
It's magical to hear from a fan's point of view, obviously, because we don't always see what goes on inside. Players always say that they love being at a club until they leave or whatever. And you want to feel that your club's special, and people always say that Forest is special. But to hear that is just quite emotional, thinking of Paul Hart, understanding that that leadership is about bringing everyone together and making those gestures.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that you don't understand, and like Macca said at the time, you don't necessarily fully appreciate it at the time. But then when you go to other clubs, and then you realise, well, hang on a second, this isn't Nottingham Forest. And you're looking around, and it's the same with a team. You build up a good team spirit. Not every club has a good team spirit. When I found that out in a big way when I moved down to London, I was moving down to London. I went down to Tottenham, and I thought to myself, it's just going to be like being at Forest. You're going to have 8 or 9 lads who are going to become my mates, and we're going to go out for a few drinks, and then we're going to go and we're going to train hard, and then we're going to get ready for Saturday, and we're going to build a great team spirit. And I went down to London and realised then that some fella lives over the other side of London, most of them live down the other side, most of them live over there, and people all over the place down in London. The team hardly ever get together for kind of team bonding things. It's not the same, and you have to, and don't get me, I'm not saying that one is right or one is the other. I'm just saying what I prefer.
Yes,
I'd prefer to be involved in that team spirit, that team bonding atmosphere, and and for that to transfer onto the pitch, because that's the most important thing about it. Is that when you go out on the pitch, if you look around to the person next to you, and I'll run through a brick wall for him, and he'll run through a brick wall for me, and if things aren't going particularly well, I know he's going to stand up and be counted.
And it did come together on the pitch in that season where got to the playoff semi-final. It's 1-1 at the City Ground. DJ scored a phenomenal goal in the first leg. And then the second leg, there's an early goal. You get a goal. We're 2-0 up with half an hour to go. I remember being at both those games. Bramall Lane. And to this day, the shame that I feel of that game is that I remember it starting a chant with half an hour to go. We're all going to Cardiff. We're all going to Cardiff, and it was just that complacency. We were just like, this is Bramall Lane was rocking. We're sticking it to the blades, which always feels good. Warnock was losing his mind. With 3-1 up on aggregate, you're like, this cannot go wrong. You were playing out your skin. That goal was superb. It's like, this is it. We're going to, we're going to Cardiff as it was then, because Wembley was being built. Of all the painful experiences of Forest fan, including multiple relegations, that memory of Bramall Lane still hurts. But it was a phenomenal... I don't like thinking of that season as a failure because it was so exciting.
Yeah, I'm raging that you've brought that up, to be honest.
I'm sorry, really?
I was hoping we wouldn't have to talk about that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But it was
He's picking up his guitar as we speak.
No, you know what? It was
side.
horrible. It was horrible. You know what the disappointing thing about the whole scenario was? That was kind of the middle point. We'd started building something, and then we just narrowly missed out on that. But we had a fantastic team. We had a really good team. There was myself. There was Ricky Shimmick.
He was brilliant.
Was there? Ricky was brilliant for us. With Jim Brennan, with Matty Lewis-Jean, Doss was there at the time. Marlon, David Johnson, Darren Huckabee came on loan.
Huckabee was
Players.
You know, he was brilliant. You know what? We had a fantastic team, right? And we narrowly missed out. Probably our youth and inexperience in the end possibly was why we missed out on that one. But we all felt, you know, we got back on the coach on the way back from Sheffield United, and we were devastated. You know, we were absolutely devastated. But there was also a little bit of a sense. There was a sense within us that, hang on, we've got a really, really good team here. We could win the league next year.
Yes.
Now, something happened in the summer where Jim Brennan ended up leaving, John Yelda ended up leaving, Ricky Shimmick left. Who was a massive miss, and we didn't really replace these players. No. So, you know, Darren Huckabee, who had been on loan to us, he went back to, he ended up signing for Norwich next season, and they went and got promoted. But the squad seemed to be, instead of, all we needed would have been 2 or 3 more players. We needed, we keep the players that we've got, and add 2 or 3 more players, and I'm convinced we would have won the league quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Instead, 4 or 5 players ended up leaving. They were replaced with the greatest respect, players that weren't as good. We got off to an okay start to the season, and then things started to dwindle because the squad, the team just simply wasn't good enough. You know, it wasn't, and Paul was kind of putting out fires left, right and centre. He wasn't given anything to deal with. So it was a complete change of direction, in my opinion, at the complete wrong time. And we ended up, as I said, losing players, and then we started to struggle, and then Paul lost his job then just before Christmas, and Joe Kinnear came in and we just kind of stayed up in the end, and all of a sudden we've gone from a team that we think, hang on, we could win the league here, to a team that's fighting against relegation. And it was such a strange time, and a little bit inexplicable in some kind of ways. You know, you look back on from being in such a strong position to all of a sudden, you know, being in a very, very weak position, and it was very disheartening, and it was very disheartening for me personally. You know, because I felt that I was, you know, wanting to kick on and wanting to, you know, get better. And I thought we'd got a great chance. As all the young lads did. Doss did, John Thompson did. You know, Gareth Williams was there at the time. You know, we were all wanting to, you know, to really, really kick on and to have these good, solid senior professionals taken away from us who were guiding us, you know, who when times were tough were able to say, you know what, I had Ricky Shimmick and I was playing to the left of Ricky Shimmick, and if I was wandering out of position, I'd have Ricky and he'd be, oh, Reidy, get yourself in here. I need you in here. We're winning 1-0. There's 10 minutes left. Get yourself in here.
You need it, don't you?
You need that, because when you're a young player, you know, you just want. I just
thinking about getting another goal, aren't you?
Give me a ball. You know, but football doesn't work like that. No. You know, you need them players, and to have them taken away from us was it was very, very difficult. You know,
I feel really bad for bringing it up now, but it was just, you know, it was such a great season.
No, I was only joking about it. It's something that does need to be spoken about, and I've got no problem speaking about it because it's the way that happened. You know,
it was so exciting as a fan. Lots of people were very excited that you were coming in, Andy. We'd have had a lot of emails from people. This one stands out purely because the name of the guy sent a guy called Fat Mick. Fat Mick
Oh, right.
has emailed in. He said, I used to drink in the pubs near Canning Circus quite a lot, and I'm sure I saw Reedy in the Hand and Heart one night playing the guitar. He did a couple of folky songs I didn't realise, and then I'm sure he played a Boy's Own medley. I've told this to numerous people, and they all reckon it must have been a guy who looked like Reedy.
Yeah, it's all true apart from the Boys Own medley. I don't know where he's got that from. I think he's taken them.
It was Westlife, wasn't it?
Take that.
But that was because that was the Hand and Heart on Derby Road up near Canning Circus.
Great boozer.
Yeah,
Yeah, used to. Yeah, that would have been my local back
This
then.
is John as well up there. Brilliant.
Yeah.
There's another guy. Tony Wood met you at an important time in his life. He said, I met Reedy the night my son Alfie was born. I'd just become a father for the first time. 3 hours earlier and was wetting the baby's head with a friend of mine, JD. I stumbled into a bloke at the bar at the Waltons Hotel. Recognising him as Reedy, I drunkenly explained that I'd become a father for the first time, was out wetting the baby's head, and pulled out a picture of my newly born son to show him. He then bought me a beer and congratulated me. What I didn't say was my son had been born 10 weeks earlier and was in the ICU unit. My Dad and Husband of the Year award are still delivered to this day. Happy to report my son is now 11. My wife has forgiven me and Forest won 4-0 the next day. And yes, I did go. Reedy was a top player for us and a good guy off the pitch, but I did just resist naming my son Reid.
Oh,
Thanks,
why?
Tony. And I should have called him Reid.
I know.
Now, the last show... firstly, let's just say what this section is called. Number 1 is Brian Rice.
And number 2 is Brian Rice. And number 3 is Brian Rice.
Now, the last show, we did ask people to start impromptu Paul McGregor chants at the Forest Bolton game last weekend. Now, we weren't sure if anyone was going to do it. I witnessed this. I went into the South Bank bar in town, and Forza Garibaldi, who do great work with fans and all that, had put on a big event before the game. There's a wonderful guy called Deke Hardman, who's a really talented guy who rewrites songs and turns them into funny Forest songs, pop songs. I couldn't believe it when I heard this.
Remember the summer of 95? Ship of flying high. Black red united and just behind. And for Europe we qualified.
Oh my God. Hairs on the back of the neck, this. The farm.
We sent Stanley up to Merseyside. Port Salensi and I don't know why. Kevin Campbell was a brilliant buy. And I had eyes for just one guy. Paul McGregor now. Paul McGregor down. Paul McGregor down. At the Bridgeford end, McGregor. Paul McGregor now. Paul McGregor down. Paul McGregor down.
At the Bridgeford end, McGregor. Paul McGregor now. Paul McGregor now. At the Bridgeford end, McGregor.
Wow.
That is absolutely fantastic.
It's great, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
Oh,
How's that feel?
amazing.
Isn't that great?
That is absolutely amazing. I'm a bit speechless.
I could see you really took that in.
Yeah.
You want a copy of that to take home with him there, and rightly so as well. That was absolutely fantastic.
Isn't it
man.
great?
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's something.
It was. I felt emotional being there. I did have hairs on the back of the neck. The whole pub started singing it.
Wow.
It was rammed.
I don't think anyone can surpass that now, can they?
Well, if you can, then record yourself singing a chant. You've got to try and do it in a pub. You've got to get people going along with it. Or if you just try it on your own and it doesn't work out, then that's probably funnier. Or do try it in the ground. Email them to rrd1865@outlook.com, or you can tweet us at rrd1865.
Oh, a big thank you for that. That's amazing. Brilliant.
I was blown away. And a mate had said, he's going to do a Paul McGregor song. I was like, right, I'll make sure I'm there. Recorded it on my phone. And the thing is, we met up on Sunday, didn't we, to watch the Merseyside derby? And I was itching because I can't keep secrets. And as the pints were flowing, I was like, "Oh God, I really want to show him this video." I was like, "I'm going to have to save it." Because I've got the video on here, so I'll show you the video.
Oh goodness!
But Deke Hardman, massive fan of yours.
Thank you, Deke.
And he's a genius. So he does loads of other songs that he's reworded, just like Oasis songs and stuff like that, rewords them as Forest songs. So we need to get him in the ground every day with his guitar pre-match. Great.
I think that's me. I might go home now.
Done. That's better than a Player of the Year award,
Where
isn't
the
it?
show goes from here.
You've got to get your guitar out now and beat it.
We've peaked too soon.
Yeah.
Now, last week we had we did a regular feature, Andy, called Trick or Tree, where we read out a fact from Forest history that is either trick, a false, or tree is true. Last week, the story about Barry Leadbeater and his former Forest manager Ernest Socap. Neither of them existed. 73% got it right on Twitter. 27% of people thought it was
They're
true.
joking, aren't they?
That's more than 1 in 4 listeners to this podcast thought that was genuine. So this one's called Sheffield Wednesday Away. We have to decide whether this is trick or true, and we'll find out on the next show. Many games have been abandoned in Forest history, but none in quite the same way as Sheffield Wednesday Away in 2002, which was abandoned after 2 Forest players were shot. You heard me right, shot with an air rifle. If you're wondering why this doesn't ring any bells, it's because this story gets even more incredible. It was at an under-14s game. Goalkeeper Darren Smith and defender James Cullingworth were shot at with an air gun at Wednesday's Middlewood Road training ground. Both players were treated by a physio but did not sustain serious injuries. Under the headline, Airgun Yobs Fire at Soccer Youngsters, the Sheffield Star reports that Wednesday Chief Exec Alan Sykes said this is the first time something like this has happened, and hopefully it will be the last. It's not known whether anyone in Sheffield rang the local paper to tell them that the sport in question is actually called football and not soccer. Do you think that is trick or tree? 2002, 2 Forest under-14s were shot at with an air rifle.
I think that's tree.
I think that's tree.
Yeah.
As in true.
As in true.
Andy?
I don't see how somebody could be ridiculous enough to make something like that up, so it has to be.
You didn't hear last week's.
This is fairly
gets
tame
pretty
compared to
ridiculous.
some of the nonsense.
Is it?
They've been like, yeah.
Oh, so I'm missing out on the ridiculousness of this. Yeah.
But both say, well, we will find out on the next show whether that's trick or treat. It's time now for Fan on the Phone. Hello, Julie. It's Matt Ford and Paul McGregor here.
Hi, Julie.
Hello.
Julie, you have a special place in Nottingham Forest history after producing an infamous Forest fanzine called Brian. How many years did it run for, and from when?
It ran from April '88 until about March 96. So I had 47 normal issues and 3 specials.
Did you have any idea about how to go about producing a magazine, or were you how did you get it into production?
I'd done a sort of general football one a year before, which had a couple of issues, and I did a music fanzine when I was 15.
Who was that for?
The music fanzine was called Dreams of Children, because I was a
For
massive Jam fan.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Great track as
They were
well.
my band. So I'd had experience of putting that together and getting it printed, selling it at gigs and trying not to get beaten up. Completely disagree with what I said in it. And, so it just seemed a natural step.
That's amazing that you played such a sort of key role in the culture of Nottingham Forest. In terms of how many you would sell, I mean, what numbers are we talking per episode, per edition?
Once it got going, I think the most I ever did was 4,000. It was normally about 3.5.
Wow,
Oh, that's great.
That's
I would say
incredible.
the readership was higher. The sort of thing that you read on a train or a coach or in the pub, and then you hand it back to your mate who's paid the 50p for it.
Well, it was absolutely fantastic. I remember seeing it around as a kid. It was such an important part of the personality of the club. Do you remember your first Forest game, Julie?
This is where I have to confess that I'm not born and bred.
That's okay.
No, this is my dark secret. I never tell anybody this.
Well, there's quite a few people listening, Julie, so you haven't chosen the ideal platform.
I didn't come to Forest until I was a teenager, and like all teenagers, when you fall hard.
Do you remember your first game?
My first game was actually Southampton in the Cup, 3rd round. Shilton was playing for Southampton. We lost 2-1.
Burned in the memory.
But something just struck a chord with me, and I was hooked.
You're doing a fanzine about Forest called Brian. Did you ever get to meet Brian Clough?
I met him once.
So what was he like when you met him?
It was quite scary. I used to drink in the News House on St James Street, which is a fantastic little establishment. And Clough did not get Manager of the Month award that month, despite the fact that we won every game. Some bloke called Alex Ferguson got it, despite the fact that Man U had drawn a couple. But I don't know what happened to him. But, if you remember that QPR game where there was a pitch invasion...
Yes! Yeah, and he walloped a few of them.
We were quite incensed that Clough was denied of his bottle of bells. So we clubbed together and got one. And then we got invited into the dressing room to present it to him. And I got very nervous, so we were waiting to go in. So I went off and bought some Bristol City League Cup second leg semi-final tickets. And then everybody else had gone in without me. But I managed to blag my way in, and Clough said, "So it's you that's holding us up, you little..."
Wow!
So we had to get the group photo taken, and he kneed me up the arse and said, "Smell, you bugger." And then after that, I presented in issues 1 to 7, as it was with the Brian, and he said, "So it's you who does it, you little minx."
Wow! What an encounter! Julie, we're joined today by Forest legend Andy Reid.
Oh, Reedy.
Oh, you know, it's funny listening to stories of Brian Clough, because I only met him once myself. But I got Man of the Match award against Coventry. We played Coventry at home. And they got Man of the Match award. And we won 1-0, but I'd missed a couple of chances. You know, I'd put a couple over the bar. And he just turned up. Nobody knew he was coming. He decided he wanted to present the Man of the Match award. And it was down in I think it might have been in the Jubilee Club or something like that. And so he decided he wanted to present it. So I had to get up on the stage, and he's got the microphone, and he says, "Oh, young man," he says, "you know, you thought you played really, really well today." He says, "I'll just give you one bit of advice." He says, "Stop watching that Johnny Wilkinson. He's supposed to kick it over the bar. You're supposed to kick it under." And everybody just absolutely killed themselves laughing. Right? And the only thing you can think to say, I'm just totally in awe, you know. And the only thing I think to say was, "Thanks very much, Mr. Clough."
Julie,
at least you remembered your manners. I'm sure that went down well.
Yeah,
indeed. Julie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, and for giving us such an important part of our Forest history. I remember the fanzine well.
Very kind of you to say so.
Thank you. Okay, so last week we announced that we'd give away a half-season ticket on this episode for the person who left us an iTunes review or an email with the story of their most arduous trip to a Forest game. So it doesn't have to be to the Forest ground. It could have been home or away. We've had a number in. I've whittled them down. I've got a short list, and then Paul is going to decide who wins. So this is from Mike Weatherall. It says, the most arduous journey to a game we had was a trip to Cleethorpes for a midweek away match versus Grimsby in the mid-90s. We managed to persuade a mate of ours to drive us to the game from Leicester, despite me having zero interest in football. 5 of us set off in his knackered old Fiesta with the boot groaning under the weight of a slab of Boddingtons for everyone but the driver to tuck into. By the time we got to the East Coast, having stopped for a pub en route, it's fair to say 4 out of 5 of us were fairly merry. As we approached the ground, we realised it was quiet, eerily quiet. We then found out the game had been called off. Upon leaving Cleethorpes to the trip home after a quick pint, my mate's car began overheating. In fact, it overheated every time we went over 20. The journey home took hours and hours longer, and we arrived home at 4:30 in the morning. This journey was made worse by the alcohol wearing off. In the time of the way home, we've been stopped by the police on 2 separate occasions for driving suspiciously slowly around Lincoln. One of those occasions. On one of those occasions, yeah, a policeman asked to look in the boot, and when he did, a load of empty beer cans landed on his foot. Perhaps the most ridiculous aspect was us trying to acquire water from my mate's now steaming car radiator. In the middle of Lincolnshire at midnight, there isn't much open. We had to nick water from horses or cows' drinking troughs from local fields. My mate didn't fancy the rearranged fixture for some reason. The lightweight. That's from Michael Weatherall.
Sounds like with Nail and I. It sounds brilliant.
I know, he has just then says, just in case I don't want to win the prizes, I've already got a season ticket. Right, so he's ruled himself out.
And he had quite a few beers as well.
He had quite a few
bad can he
beers.
be?
Okay, so here we go. James Ablewhite. A few years back in League One, some of the trips were arduous. Doncaster's Belle Vue, not too far, but various car problems leading to travelling up in the back of a van on a toll box to stand behind a goal freezing around Christmas, only for Smith to chuck a shot straight at him over his shoulder. But the most memorable was to Luton. The trip down was fine, even though we found a parking space fairly easily. £5 for a space and little car park access through some terraced houses. Only space for about 15 cars. Brilliant. Get out of here easy after the game. So we went to find a pub, but we came across a working men's club that we thought might have a bar. A bloke in a suit advised us there was a bar at the far end. So in we went, straight into a wedding reception. We got a fair few stares as they looked up from their dinner, but we decided to carry on and go at the far end. In it was packed with Forest fans who had found the proper entrance at that end. A pint in hand was all good, stood outside chatting and having a sing. Then the atmosphere changed a bit and tension seemed to build. So we thought, right, let's get down to the ground. Little ground with character anyway. We watched an awful performance. Neil Lennon trying to run our team's midfield. I don't think he could run the team's bath. It's a bit unfair. We get beat, we leave. Tensions still feel high, so we head straight back to the car park to get away. Find that the car park is full. I don't mean the 15 spaces. They'd rammed about 50 cars in. Every last inch is full, and we're boxed in at the back. Now, this is a detail that I think is quite funny. That, to me, says you're going to be waiting hours. About 30 minutes later, we can finally leave. You're like, half an hour's not much of a wait, is it? Like, it's not.
No, mind you, in Luton.
In Luton, so that's one of the contenders, and there's a couple more here.
Oh, did that end there?
That ends there.
Oh, okay. What? They just got home fairly safely after that?
Yeah.
Okay. No losses of limbs or.
No losses of limbs.
No. Okay.
But here we are. Let's find out if Dan W. He says, my most arduous journey was a nearly 4,000-mile trip.
Win.
To make it back for Forest home game with Scunthorpe in 2011. I've been at my cousin's wedding in Dubai, so one delayed 6-hour flight and 4 hours on a train later, I made the match. We won the game 5-1, which made the long trip without sleep completely worth it. Sadly, the late-night coach trip back from the playoff in Swansea a few weeks later wasn't as rewarding, though we did get a Billy Davies handshake at the ground. I mean, 4,000 miles, and it was delayed from Dubai, and he still made it.
Yeah, but he's been in Dubai, hasn't he? For probably 2 weeks.
That's a fair point. He's had it.
There are silver linings to all of these, aren't there?
Well, that's it. But that's your top contender at the moment.
If I'm honest, I'd go for number one, but he doesn't want the ticket.
Doesn't want the ticket, so we can't give it to him.
What would you reckon, Reedy?
Well, there's another one.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. So here we go. This is from Ashley. A group of my mates' dads from his pub, the Horse and Groom on Radford Road, had arranged to hire a coach to drive up to Man City. They'd managed to sell about 50 tickets for their mates and whoever they wanted to bring, most of the men working in the building trade. I was 13 and my mate was 10. We were the only kids going, so really intimidated being surrounded by these tough, manly blokes. Most of us had arrived at the pub on time early in the morning, waiting for my dad's mate with the coach he got from Skills in Bulwell. 30 minutes after the original meeting time, we heard a noise that got louder and louder. We went outside and saw what a terrible coach we'd been given. It was a cheap K-Reg Volvo covered in dirt. It was the coach equivalent to Onslow's car in keeping up appearances. My dad asked what took so long and his mate explained how crap the coach was and the gearbox was broke. He couldn't get it out of first. So we had to travel all the way to Manchester doing 45 miles an hour in first with everyone on the coach singing, "One gear, we've only got one gear, we've only got one gear." We were worried that we'd be late for the game, but managed to get there on time. But when we got to our seats, we're on the back row. So because I was only a kid, I had to keep moving about trying to watch the match through any gaps in the bodies I could get because everyone was standing. Not only did it take ages to get to the match, I didn't get to see the match properly in what was one of the best away games in my time being a Forest supporter. So, is it Ashley? Andy Reid. Really backing Ashley up on this one.
You like that one, Reedy?
Yeah, I've been to the Horse and Groom as well. So.
This is rigged.
Yeah, no, I think he does.
Yeah, I'm with Reedy. I like that one.
So, Ashley, you have won it, mate. You've won a half
only got
season
one gear.
ticket.
That's great.
That definitely made it, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was the wit that sort of made that. But he's got himself a half season ticket.
Wow, there you go.
He's going to every home league game now for the rest of the season for free. Mate, Merry Christmas, Ashley.
Yeah.
And as it is Christmas, we're gonna take ourselves back in time now. Imagine we're in the Hand in Heart on Derby Road. Who's that over in the corner? I think that's Andy Reid, and he's got his guitar.
Well, there ain't no use sit here and wonder why, babe, even you don't know by now. There ain't no use sit here and wonder why, babe, he'll never do so. When the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm a traveling on, but don't think twice, 'cause it's alright. And there ain't no use in calling out my name, girl, like you never done before. and there ain't no use in calling out my name, girl, 'cause I can't hear it anymore. Well, I ain't saying you treated me unkind. Well, you could have done better, but I don't mind. You just kinda wasted my precious little time. But don't think twice, 'cause it's alright. So goodbye, honeybee. Where I'm bound I can tell. And goodbye is too good a word, girl, so I'll just say fairly well. I'm a-thinking and a-wondering as I'm walking down the road. Well, I once loved a woman, a child I'm told. I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul. But don't think twice, 'cause it's alright. No, don't think twice, 'cause it's alright. All right, yes, then, yeah.
Oh, man.